Weezer's classic self-titled debut album, also affectionately known as the Blue Album, was released 30 years ago this year. And to celebrate, the band has gone back into the garage to find some gems from the Weezer vault to put on this 30th anniversary deluxe edition, and to remind us that the Blue Album frickin' rocks. Let's break it all down and maybe sing a song or two from the Blue Album on this edition of Rock Album Review.
My name is Jonas. I'm carrying the wheel.
Hey everybody, it's Nick here with you. Welcome back to the channel. Weezer's Blue Album is 30 years old this year. It was originally released on May the 10th, 1994, and to celebrate, Weezer has released an extensive 30th anniversary deluxe edition of the album.
I want a girl who will laugh for no one else.
And similar to bands like Oasis and the Smashing Pumpkins and the Beatles and Biffy Clyro, Weezer is one of my ride or die bands. I have loved and listened to them through every phase of their career, both the good and the bad, or at least what people perceive to be the good and the bad. But that all started back in 1994 with the Blue Album. And of course, I know this album like the back of my hand. I've listened to this album so many times. I got various editions. I got the CD version. I got the vinyl version. I know this album like the back of my hand. And I was actually really excited to hear some of the nuggets that I haven't heard on this deluxe edition. The Blue Album was released in 1994 and established Weezer as the perfect mix of the Cars meets the Beach Boys meets the Beatles. And I got into the album a few years later. I want to say around 1998, I picked up my first CD copy of the Blue Album, picked up the vinyl a few years later, and I went through my first obsessive phase of being a Weezer fan in the dark years in 1998 when the band had put out the Blue Album, they'd put out Pinkerton, they hadn't put out the Green Album yet. That's when I became a huge fan of Weezer pre-Green Album. And Weezer quickly became one of my favorite bands, became a huge influence on me as I was learning guitar and starting my first band. I would play songs like Say It Ain't So and Undone the Sweater Song over and over again. Those were our go-to songs to learn how to play guitar when we jammed in music class.
Say it ain't so.
And 1994 was a huge year for rock in general. I actually did a video here on the channel where I listed my top 10 favorite albums, rock albums from 1994. And it was a great year for rock. We had Weezer, the Blue Album, obviously, Oasis, Definitely Maybe, Green Day, Dookie, Offspring, Smash, and the list goes on. 1994 was a huge year for rock. And the Blue Album has always been a solid 10 out of 10. It is a perfect record. And while we may disagree on the merit of subsequent Weezer records, I think we can all agree that the Blue Album is a no-skip album for sure.
If you want to destroy my sweater, hold this thread as I walk away.
And with this 30th anniversary deluxe edition, Weezer has gone back to the garage, literally, to bring us some lost gems from the Blue Album era, from the kitchen tapes, the famed garage sessions, and much more.
In the garage, I feel safe. No one cares about my ways.
And Weezer is one of those bands that I have tried to collect every studio or officially released track ever by the band and compiled them in my iTunes playlist. So I was most interested in the tracks on here that I'd never heard before, as opposed to the live tracks / rehearsals / demos. And I'm familiar with some of the tracks off the kitchen tapes, but it was cool to hear some of the other tracks that were recorded during those sessions, literally in the band's kitchen at the time. And it reminds me of the rough demos that my band used to do back in the day that we were record. So from hearing early versions like Say It Ain't So or The World Has Turned and Left Me Here or Only in Dreams, it was cool to hear those alternate early versions on the kitchen tapes.
The world has turned and left me here, just where I was before you appeared.
And even though these recordings are beyond rough that they did in the kitchen and in the garage, it's very, very apparent that these songs are still intact. The lyrics, the melodies, they're intact and show the band's songwriting and performances that would become famous later on. And in terms of the unreleased tracks on here that I wasn't really super familiar with, although the recordings, again, are pretty rough, the songs are still vintage Weezer. Of course, we have some versions of some songs that we've gotten, I think, on the 10th and 20th anniversary editions of the Blue Album. album. That would be Paperface, Let's Sew Our Pants Together, and Thief, You've Taken All That Was Me. These have been available online and on different versions and on different bootlegs for years, but it's still nice to have them on this set to make it feel complete.
You take your car to work, I'll take my board.
I Can't Forget This Way is a song that I wasn't really familiar with. It had a big metal riff on it that really shows the band's heavier influences. As we know, Rivers was a big metal guy, a shredder before he started doing more like alt-rock stuff with Weezer. And this actually had a really cool sloppy bass riff from Matt Sharp on it as well, cutting through the very simple mix. I know a lot of old school Weezer fans love to hear some Matt Sharp, so it was nice to hear him cutting through with the bass. And some of the unreleased songs on here are so-so. You can kind of hear why they didn't really make the A-list of material like the other classics from this era. Songs like Windows Down and Dawn Sets Upon Us are nice experiments, but they don't really go anywhere. Not that they really should. This is a band experimenting in the garage, experimenting in the kitchen, but this is Rivers we're talking about, right? He's a very prolific writer to this day. He's always written and recorded so many demos and so many songs, so not everything is going to be pure songwriting gold. Superman for me was by far the best of the unreleased songs. If James Gunn needs a new theme song for his Superman movie that's coming out next year, I think Weezer can always go back and dig this one up. It's got a super dancey beat from Pat Wilson, and it's actually really catchy when you listen to the melody through that very rough recording. It could have been a really good song for the record if they continued to develop it.
On a holiday, far away, let's go today.
And of course, the band's cover of Just What I Needed, the classic by the Cars, is very appropriate for this set, considering that Rick Ocasek produced the Blue Album. The late, great Rick Ocasek of the Cars was the producer on the Blue Album. The only thing I'm wondering is, like, did they record this after they knew that Rick was going to produce the record? Like, I really like how they did this version. I like how Rivers sings the falsetto line that matches the synth line from the original version. So it's nice to hear them pay some homage to the Cars and Rick Ocasek. And if you're more of a fan of the live material, I'll always pick the studio versions over live material, but there are some really cool Weezer shows here from that era, the 1992 to 1994 era, that are here to enjoy. The 8121 Club, English Acid, Club Lingerie, LMU. No doubt these were iconic LA music venues in the band's history, which are probably all Starbucks by now.
I look just like Buddy Holly. Whoa, and you married Tyler Moore.
Overall, this Blue Album Deluxe 30th anniversary set really is a treasure trove for hardcore Weezer fans, similar to some of the other anniversary sets that we've gotten in recent memory. It's Weezer really digging deep into the vault, into the garage, and offering as much material as they possibly can. This does feel like the most comprehensive version of the Blue Album yet, and we've gotten plenty of versions of the Blue Album. And then taking a look at the 30th anniversary sets online, these guys are not cheap. The deluxe CD version is almost $90 on Amazon Canada. That's a little rich for my blood, but I do really dig that knitted sweater cover. And then the deluxe CD box is $100 on Weezer's website. The super deluxe vinyl box set is $250, and the limited edition sweater version is $400. Hardcore fans only apply here. Overall, if you love Weezer, if you love the Blue Album like I do, you're a Weezer completist like me, this 30th anniversary deluxe edition is definitely for you. If the physical edition is too much in terms of the cash, because it is a lot to get these physical editions, at least you can do it on streaming. You can listen to the entire super deluxe ultimate ultra box set all in one spot and remind yourself why the Blue Album fucking rules.
Only in dreams. Only in dreams.
And that is it, guys. That is my rock album review of the Weezer Blue Album 30th Anniversary Super Deluxe Ultra Ultimate box set that just came out. I didn't pick it up on physical form. I already have plenty of copies of the Blue Album here, but I did enjoy listening to it on streaming. But let me know in the comments what you thought of this Weezer Deluxe Edition. Let me know what your favorite tracks on there were. If you like this video, make sure to toss me a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. Make sure to smash the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. And make sure to follow me online across social media platforms at Nick Chino Music. But I'll see you guys again for another video here on the channel. Until then, rock on, everybody.